Sean and I just got back from our trip through Norway, Scotland, and England. It was my first trip with my DJI Mini 3 drone, and I'm hoping that the lessons that I learned, the mistakes that I made, will help you on your next vacation. No matter how much practice you have done at home, there's just something different when you're in a new environment. People may be watching, you're trying to get that perfect shot. Being aware of the following lessons will help calm some of those nerves, but if you're anything like me, it's natural that you're going to be a little nervous, and that's okay. Just don't be so nervous that you don't use your drone when it was completely safe to do so. We took a hike while we were in Bergen, which is one of our top 2 hikes of all time. And the weather was on and off, rain, wind, but we found the perfect location to get the shot that we wanted. And so we set up the drone, everything's looking good. The shot halfway down looks great, going down the valley. And then all of a sudden, as I'm still flying forward, it looks like the camera froze. At this time, I didn't know if it was the camera that froze, the drone wasn't responding, if it was something in the software, if it was the power lines that were close by. What I came to find out is that it was the camera that just froze, and all the controls with the drone still were working. I could maneuver the drone. However, I could not see the drone. So I had no idea without the camera working, looking at the screen on the remote control, how to get the drone back. So this is where just stay calm and remember your return to home button. So I simply hit the return to home button, always hover my finger above the pause button, just in case it's off for some reason, or there may be an obstacle close by that you need to avoid. So I hit the return to home button, hoped it would come back. It did, no problems. What I later learned through some research is that this is an issue with the DJI Mini 3 Pro software. And the fix right now is 1, to make sure you have the latest version of the software, but 2, to turn off the drone, then turn it back on to reset the drone. So if this happens, just hit return to home, turn it off, back on, and reset it. Depending upon where you're flying your drone and where you're going on vacation, there are going to be different rules. Countries have different rules. There are countries that have outright banned the use of drones completely. Fortunately, those are few. However, the rules are going to vary from country to country. I found out that in the EU, most of the rules were the same. You had to be a certain distance away from buildings when you took off. Couldn't take off in certain places. You also couldn't fly overhead over people, which is obviously a safety issue. And lastly, I found out that you actually had to register your drone. It was $25. It registers it through, for me, it was a year and a half for $25, and it actually registered it in all of the countries in the EU. So I didn't have to register it in both Norway, Scotland, and also in England separately. But know the rules that will prevent you from getting any unnecessary fines. And also, it just ensures that you're respecting where you are and those that are around you. Knowing the limits of your drone will help to ensure that you're flying it safely and also calm some of your fears. For instance, what is the elevation limit of your drone? For the DJI Mini 3 Pro, I found out that it was good most times in ideal conditions, up to 12,000 feet in elevation gain. And there were a couple of times on vacation where I was only at 2,000 feet elevation gain and was concerned, is this too high? Will it affect it? How will it affect it? Now I know, and I wish I would have known then, that it's nothing to be concerned about at that elevation, but you want to know what the limits are for elevation. Also, very importantly, wind. What is the wind limitation for your drone that could either fly it off course or potentially put your drone in danger? What is the distance limit? How far can you fly it? And with this one, be aware that this is under ideal conditions. There are certain situations and factors, such as heavy power lines, for instance, that could affect the signal from your controller to your drone that could limit that distance. So just be aware of that. Knowing these limits will keep your drone safe and will calm any fears you may have in certain situations, and will ensure that you're only flying it when it's safe to do so, and also you're not missing shots that you could have otherwise gotten. Are there wires that you need to avoid? Are there trees? Are there elevated ground around you, meaning you're not at the highest point? Maybe there's a hill behind you that is a higher point, so if you do a quick shot or a master shot and you're flying in a circle with those, that it could run into that. You want to be aware of all of those, of your surroundings, before ever taking off with your drone. For us, there were a couple situations where we were on sea cliffs in Scotland with spectacular views of the sea, farmland behind us, but you had to be aware of the season because it was a nesting area, or could have been a nesting area for birds. And birds can be aggressive with the drone, very rare. However, if it's nesting season, I did find out, fortunately not the hard way, but through some research, that they can get aggressive when it's nesting season and protecting their nest, protecting their eggs and their babies. So you just want to be aware of your surroundings and even sometimes wildlife. First question I ask myself before I would ever take out the drone is, do I need the drone to capture the shot that I want to? For instance, we were in Geiranger in Norway. We were on a outlook point and overlooking a spectacular fjord. And then at that lookout point, there were a lot of people, and then there were also the mountain in the background behind us that really limited what I could do with the drone. I did get a couple of shots. However, it wasn't the best situation to use that. And what I later come to find out is that the shots we got with just a handheld device, which was our phone, were better than anything I captured with the drone, because I would have put it in a little bit of danger with the power lines, the trees around, the elevated ground that was around. And honestly, the camera did better than I could have captured with the drone in a safe way. So plan your shots before taking it off and ask yourself, do I need the drone here, or can a handheld device work? Also, what shots are you gonna take before taking off? Are you gonna do video? And if so, what is that shot? Is it a quick shot or a master shot, which is pre-programmed in there? If so, which one are you gonna do? And at what distance are you gonna set it at? Are you gonna take photos? And if so, what kind of photos do you want? What are you trying to capture? What do you want the background to be? With the DJI Mini 3 Pro, you have the option to set the distance for quick shots. So for instance, if you're doing a selfie where the drone flies away from you, you can set how far you want the drone to fly away. And by increasing the distance, provided you're in a safe environment and you have that clearance, by increasing the distance that goes, so I think the default might be 40 meters, and I would set it at 120 meters. So still keeping below any type of elevation limits that I had of 400 feet where we were at, but I would set it at a much higher distance. And the reason for that is I learned halfway through the trip that if I sent it further away, it obviously will still get up close depending upon where you take off with the drone, but then also you'll capture more of the environment around you and more of the scenery. And that's what we were ultimately trying to do, was capture us within the environment. So by increasing the distance on those quick shots, I was able to capture so much more. And I wish I would have learned that for the first half of our trip. Don't get so dead set caught up in capturing a shot that you put it up in unsafe conditions. For instance, when we were out in Geiranger, Norway, we were doing an e-car tour, and I was dead set on wanting to get a shot of the car going up this windy road, up a mountain. And however, when I looked at the environment and saw there were power lines going across the road, could I increase the elevation of the drone to get above that? Yeah, I could do that. But then there were also tree branches at certain points that were going across the road. And if I had any issues with the drone, there was really nowhere for me to pull off and then stop doing what I'm doing without holding up an entire line of traffic. So for me, as much as I wanted to get that shot, it just wasn't worth risking losing the drone or creating an unsafe environment for myself or anybody else around us, and then missing out on all those other shots I could have gotten for the rest of the trip with my drone. So I had to let go of that. So know when to use your drone and when not to use your drone. This is a lesson that I had to learn really just by using it and doing it. And what I mean by this is I feel like the first few times on our vacation that I used the drone, I was either good at capturing us or the people we were with, or I was good at capturing the scenery. But what I didn't feel like I was really doing a great job of was capturing us within the environment, within the scenery, and really combining those two features. So learning to capture both of those will enable you to get the perfect shot or those perfect shots that you're looking for. So for instance, within the DJI Mini 3 Pro, there's a hyperloop feature that goes not in a circle, but kind of more of an oval. And what I learned is that whatever direction you start that hyperloop quick shot at, that is the direction that it will end at. So for instance, the drone will start down low and go in a circle, but then it goes higher as it goes in that circle. If I'm facing the camera right now to start that hyperloop, when it goes up to the top of the shot, it's also going to be facing the camera as well. So it's going to face the direction that you started from. So knowing things like this about the quick shots will enable you to capture the start and the end of what you want, and will enable you to capture not just the people, but also the scenery and the people within the environment. When I practiced with the drone at our house for 2 or 3 months beforehand, I was so focused on video and capturing video from it, which I do feel like is the most important features of using a drone. However, there were times when I wanted to capture photos, whether that's us on our balcony in the hotel, cheersing a glass of wine, or whether that's on a cliffside or what have you. There were times when I wanted a photo. Could I just do a video and then take a snapshot from that? Yeah, you can, but I really wanted to capture a video in those situations. However, I didn't really practice or know of the settings and how quickly to do that. So how do I set the timer on it? Making sure the resolution is set. How close or far do I want it from us to capture us and potentially any background that we wanted with us? So make sure you know the photo settings, how to change those, as well as the video settings before your next vacation. I was not aware of how the sensors may affect when I was trying to pull my drone back into a tight space for a landing on the balcony of our hotel. First of all, before I get a bunch of comments, I'm well aware I should have taken off, not from the balcony, but on the ground away from the hotel. I was willing to risk it for this shot and to get it the way that I wanted it. But what I wasn't aware of was that the obstacle avoidance sensors and how that would affect the drone. When I brought the drone back in to the balcony for a landing, I could have grabbed it a little further out from the railing to flip it over and turn it off, and that might have been the right approach. However, I was concerned that if I just accidentally dropped it, it was going to fall. I tried to pull it all the way back into the balcony, and our balcony had a ceiling on it, and when I did that, because I was nervous, it was my first time flying it on vacation, I probably pushed it forward a little too hard, and what happened is the obstacle avoidance sensors on the front of the drone did what they were supposed to do. They saw the sliding glass door and was getting too close to it, so they tried to avoid the sliding glass door by going up. And by doing that, and there being a ceiling or a roof over our balcony, that's when the drone, instead of flying into the glass door, it would have stopped before, but it saw it, it flew up, and then hit the ceiling, and that was the crash that we had. And that, fortunately, it did not damage the drone. I did have extra propellers just in case, but it didn't damage any of the hardware or the software in the drone, especially since that was the second day of our 22-day vacation, and I would have lost all the shots that we got on the vacation. Looking back on it, what I should have done is as I pulled it in, I would have considered turning off the sensors so that way it didn't happen, or maybe not bringing it quite as close into the balcony, maybe just over the railing, and then I could have grabbed it instead of trying to land it on the table. No.
Is Val okay?
Val lives.
Val's okay.
Val is a true Norwegian. He's meant to take a beating. Val appears to be okay. We'll see next flight. Likely not from this balcony, though.